Hey, Changemaker, something big is about to shift. And if you've been feeling like you're on the edge of something new and anticipation is building, well, then this episode is for you. In just a few days, the sun crosses into Aries season, the Aries Ingress, at the same time that Mercury comes to a stop to station direct. This is here to spark a most potent astrological new year. Now, this does more than mark the sun's milestone. This energy is calling you into something fresh, reimagined, and to live out loud. Now, what does it mean to live out loud? Well, stay with me because by the end of this episode, you're going to know exactly what the stars are inviting you into next with our third celebration of a new year. Welcome back, Star Powered family. And if you're new here, aloha and welcome. I'm Leslie Tagorda, Hawaii born astrologer, author of the upcoming book Astrology for Changemakers, coming out in September 2026, and creator of the Astrobrand Method. I light the path for visionaries, healers, and changemakers like you to attune to your strengths, purpose, and power written in your stars. If astrology, leadership, and real change through an uncolonized lens are your jam, click subscribe and let's dive in. Hello, friends. Hello, friends. Welcome back. I've been on a roll lately. I've definitely been feeling this momentum building as the sun gets ready to enter into Aries, our equinox. And so I wanted to come in and share about like what this energy is inviting us into, what the equinox means on an astronomical level, and how you can really use Aries energy, even if you don't have any Aries planets, what you need to know about it, like its true superpowers, and how to reframe and reclaim that energy in your life and leadership. Now, we also have this Mercury, our Mercury retrograde in Pisces is coming to an end and getting ready to move direct. And so, this is also our opportunity to to review what has been reimagined for you so you can start living it. All energy is pointing to living this out loud. Now, not I don't always share the card that I pull, but I always end up pulling a card before after I write my notes for the podcast, what I want to talk about, the energy that I'm feeling. I always ask a card just to like give me insight as to really what do me and you, the listeners, need to know about this energy. And these cards are always just like so spot on because, like I said, I've already done my notes. So I have a great idea of what I want to talk about. And these cards just like really galvanize, validate for me what is the energy of this. And so I pulled a card from the Radiant Wiles Tarot deck by Nat Ginsburg, Gersberger, sorry, Nat Gersberger. And I pulled for this, like, what do I and my listeners need to know about this equinox and Mercury retrograde? And I got this beautiful Eight of Wands. Oh, I can't see it from my little filter. But the Eight of Wands says, I harness the universe's powerful pulse. Let me just read it, what it says. The powerful vibration of the universe outside and within is easily available to you with the Eight of Wands. The speed of light is within reach. To harness it, lean into this pulsating energy, match the pace of the world with flexibility of a yogi, and your moves will be unstoppable. This is the time to devote yourself to mastering whatever matters to you most. If you stay open minded to change and fully focus on your highest self, you can enjoy rapid progress and expansion. Just as a handstand requires courage to leap into, the Eight of Wands implores you to charge ahead fearlessly. Set aside your doubts, for this is the time in which you can make miracles happen. Harness this radiant vitality while it lasts. Okay, friends, do you see this card is really pointing into the right direction. Now, we have this Aries ingress. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. And so when the sun moves into Aries of 0 degrees, it is just this potent energy. It is absolutely the new year. I know we had our New Year Gregorian calendar, arbitrary New Year on January 1st. And then we had our Lunar New Year at the Aquarius new moon, which really opened us up to like asking and like really getting clear on what our vision is, where we want to go in the future. But now, this Aries ingress, sun crossing over the ecliptic, that's like, like in tropical astrology, we're looking at the sun, we're looking at the solstices, and we're looking at the equinoxes to create those 0 degrees of cardinal signs. And so as soon as the sun goes from the south to the north at the equatorial axes, we have a new year. Now, I know I'm sorry, my southern hemisphere friends, but just the way that the earth is tilted and oriented towards the sun, that northern part is like tilted towards the sun. And so everything in astrology is directed towards like the seasons of the northern hemisphere. And so this is truly for everyone here on earth, our earth spring, even if you're in the southern hemisphere getting ready for your winter. So this is fresh energy. When I think about all of like some of the beautiful Muslim cultures that are celebrating at this time, they're celebrating the return of spring, fertility. For Christian holidays, we'll have Easter soon, which of course was, taken from a pagan holiday. But still, we're celebrating the same dang thing, the crossing over of the sun into this Aries season. Ancients from all cultures absolutely knew the significance of this astronomical event, and then through cosmology gave it its meaning. And that's where astrology comes in. And so you're probably already feeling this momentum. Maybe your energy is growing, maybe your excitement is growing, maybe your momentum and things are moving so much faster. And now, while we're not quite into Aries season as I'm recording this about a week before the event, you're already picking up on that momentum, right? Because when we think about astrology isn't like, oh, here's the exact time that this event is going to happen, so everything is going to line up to that. We want to think about these astrological events more like waves. And if you've ever spent time on the ocean or caught a wave, done surfing or boogie boarding or anything, you know that the wave has a big buildup ahead of it. And then as soon as it crashes, then that build down is much faster. And so oftentimes when you're having a transit event happening in your life, it's happening right before the peak of the event. And then that'll be like the highlight of it. And then that energy stays with you while that wave crashes back down. Doesn't always have to crash, but when that wave comes back down after that wave breaks. But remember that it's not always exact timing. And so we are feeling this uplift, the wave building, the momentum. And that if we're swimming, if we're going to catch that wave, we got to start picking up our own pace in our lives, in our leadership, in our work. And so this is not a time to dilly-dally, my friends. This is time to like take action, to live out loud. Like, what does living out loud mean to you? And so I know even in our work, I've been talking about Circle a lot because I'm super excited. And thank you for everybody who's already signed up for Circle. This is going to be such a great year. I've been talking to my certification folks who are going to be like really big participants in Circle this year. And we are just so excited to share all of the genius. Like, you really should see some of our latest cohort of certification. They have been creating the most amazing archetypes projects for their end of their cohort assignments. And Troy Schmidt and Karen Rose, they raised the bar so high with their archetypes projects, which they're going to be turning into different trainings and different products in their astrology based business. And they're going to be sharing that in Circle this year, along with the other Astro Brand certified practitioners. They have so much genius to share. It's just been absolutely exciting. And so Circle is going to be opening 6 days. Our opening ceremony is 6 days after our equinox. And so this is a fresh start. Why we come together in community and why the certification and Circle is so potent is because we're doing this work together. If you've ever tried to be a lone wolf, a solopreneur, just chugging away, doing your own thing, trying to get your ideas to life, it is so hard. But when you have a community, when you're sharing your work with others, where you're getting the encouragement and the feedback and all of the love and support, you can do so much. And so Circle is all about this. I'll be talking a little bit more of Circle as we go through, but if you are just interested in joining a global community of other astrology loving change makers, leaders, spiritual entrepreneurs, everything, right? Global. And I know like global, oh, it's like so far away, but some of us live in places where we don't have anybody that understands us. And so we have to connect online. We have people from, from Mexico, from Europe, from Australia, from New Zealand. It's going to be so fantastic. And of course, the United States. So if you're interested, head on over to starpower.com/circle. I kept it really affordable for people. And if you're still having some financial struggles, I have some service-based scholarships. We're changing our scholarships instead of just all free this year. We're putting in a lot of love and effort and support. And so we want this to really be reciprocal. And so if you need a scholarship, we are simply asking you to contribute about 1 hour a month into creating and community building for the circle. So if that's you, we can definitely talk about that. Head on over to starpower.com/circle. So going back to all of the momentum, this is also our final stretch of Mercury retrograde. And so Mercury retrograde is finishing up, helping you reimagine. Mercury has been going retrograde in the sign of Pisces, where Pisces power is power to dream, the power to transcend reality, to suspend belief, to create different worlds. And so in that episode, if you listen to the Mercury retrograde in Pisces, I was talking about Alyssa Liu, the gold medalist skater from Oakland here in the Bay Area, and how she reimagined her career in skating and did it her own way. The stars have been asking us to reimagine how we want to do things in our own way. Like I reimagined Circle. I have a music mentee, Katie, who just had this amazing clarinet recital, her first year master's recital, and it was called Reclamation. It came like she played this most amazing program, but she also wrote these stories to her younger versions of herself and her different teachers who did her harm, who really took her off the path that she wanted, but now she's reimagining what it is to be a musician on her terms. Like, oh my gosh, I've been seeing this like over and over with my clients and with my associates and people in my circles. And so what has been reimagined for you? Because as soon as Mercury goes direct, as soon as the sun crosses over Aries, like if you are not already taking action, right? Eight of Wands, taking action and momentum on this, then you've kind of you're going to miss that wave. And there's nothing worse than missing that wave, because like if you've been surfing or if you've like spent any time at the beach, when you miss the wave, then you got to wait for the next wave. And you don't know when the next wave is going to come. The next wave will come, but you just don't know. There's this wave right now. You got to catch it, right? And so when I think about what's being reimagined and just like all of the momentum, I just also turned in my book manuscript, right? Astrology for Changemakers is coming out in September of this year. It's already available for pre-sale on Amazon. And Jeff and I have been getting ready for this book. We are getting ready to, put some feelers out for launch teams, for people who want to collaborate or host dinners. We have so many exciting things, but in addition to turning in my like final edits for the manuscript, there's a process where I turned in my original manuscript. The editor comes back with all of their comments that you have to answer. I turned that in just yesterday, like so excited. And then a few years ago, I was working with an app developer to put together an app for the Astrobrand method and my star powered philosophy. Well, things happened, and I was going through my health challenges, and she was going through whatever she was going through, and like everything just kind of fizzled out. And then back in January, she reached out to Jeff and I, and she's like, hey, like, are you ready to start on this app again? Would you still be open to working on this app? And I was like, absolutely. Like, I have been waiting, and I absolutely now trust in the divine timing, because I think if we had started the app a few years ago, there wasn't all of the new technology that's available now with like vibe coding, that's kind of AI coding, and all of the powerful learning language models. And I didn't really have a complete learning language model because I didn't yet have this book manuscript. And so we met earlier this week to get that started, knowing that we have all of this content now that is just been polished. Jeff and I have been working on a brand new website to match this book. We have a new quiz, a self assessment. We I'm laughing because it sounds ridiculous how much work we have been doing in the last 2 weeks catching this wave for this Aries ingress. And so, what is this for you? I'm sharing these stories in my life because not only do I want you to update you on all the exciting things that are coming through, but also because I want you to start connecting the dots to like, what's happening in your life? How are you harnessing this energy? So when we come back to this Aries ingress, right, I was mentioning just the importance astronomically of the Aries ingress, of the sun crossing that threshold of the equatorial axes on that northern word. But if you wake up at sunrise or watch the sun set on the day of the equinox, which is March 20th this year, you will see that the sun rises at due east and the sun sets at due west, meaning right in the middle of the horizon, not at the northernmost part of the horizon and not at the southernmost horizon, right smack in the middle. Equilibrium, equator, equity, equinox. All of this means balance. And so when we think about balance on the equinoxes, we have the Aries equinox in the spring and we have the Libra equinox in the fall when the sun starts to make its southern descent. And so at these times of the equinox, we have equal amounts of day and night. In the northern hemisphere, the days are getting longer, the nights are getting shorter. But on equinox, no matter where you live on planet Earth, day and night are the same. Isn't that incredible? It gives me chills when I just think about it, right? And so when we think about this equinox and balance, it does mean that we're here to get things started. Aries is starting energy. Aries is the power to get things started, to activate, to energize, to motivate, to go your own way, to go places that you've never been, to trailblaze, living out loud, doing things your own way. Like, hello. And so this year, as we have this Aries equinox, remember, we have both Saturn and Neptune now both in Aries. And so as the sun moves into Aries, mundane astrologers always look at the Aries ingress to see what's going to happen on the world stage. And on the world stage, things are not hunky dory, right? And I know that I'm very excited. And if you are listening here again, you're likely a very privileged person. We are currently, blessed not being in a war zone, not being in a climate disaster zone, and to be grateful for that and to do our best to to fight against all of these unnecessary wars. If you listen to my last episode, I talked a little bit about Jupiter in Cancer and, how it's the fallacy of like why we are fighting these wars. But at the beginning of 2026, when we're looking at Uranus in Gemini, Saturn in Aries, Saturn and Neptune, and looking at the different representations for world wars, civil wars, cold wars, all of those things at one time happening in this year, you can see how the rhyme has already presented itself. I mean, the United States bombing Venezuela and Iran just simply to have access over the ports of oil, like, we shouldn't even be using oil anymore. We need to be investing in renewables. It doesn't make, I mean, it makes sense when you think about if you're only driven by profit and greed, but it doesn't make sense for humanity. It doesn't make sense for ecology. It doesn't make sense for change making for folks like you and me. And so the reason why I bring this up is because you can see that we are currently in a version of a world war in the United States with all of, the with ICE and DHS. We're currently in the middle of a civil war. And I wonder what kind of Cold War is still about to present itself. And so when we think about Aries of 0 degrees and the Aries ingress, mundane astrologers like one of my favorite mundane astrologers, Wade Caves, he's actually, if you go to his website, Wade Caves Astrology, if you look that up, he's hosting a mundane astrology world summit talking about the geopolitical landscape for the next year. They're really looking at this Aries of 0 degrees because as soon as Aries moves, the sun moves into Aries, in a couple of days, it's going to make a cazimi with Neptune that's sitting at 1 degrees of Aries. And then a few days later, another cazimi with, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, with Aries and Saturn. And so these two energies are going to be very, very, according to mundane astrologers, I'm not a mundane expert, but according to mundane astrologers, this is going to be very, very challenging for world leaders. And when I think about change makers like you and I, we're being asked to lead, but not from like that top down world leadership style. In a way, we're being called into leading community, to making a difference at the local level, at the humanitarian level, at our community level with Pluto in Aquarius. And so this is going to be really interesting to watch and unfold. And remember, while you might not have a place in like the overall like global theater, you still have an enormous impact in the way that you lead in your community, making a difference for in people's lives. And so we really need your energy, your leadership, and your change making. And so when I think about the Aries archetype, of course, is one of those energies we can easily see leadership, right? Because Aries wants to be the first, it wants to be the best, it wants to have that competitive edge, it's willing to stand up and fight for what it wants. But for people like you and me as change makers, we can translate that energy into advocacy, standing up for what's right, doing what's right. We can translate that leadership into self initiation, getting things started, guiding others. Because in order to be a leader, hello, you need people. You can't just be a lone wolf leading nobody. You have to be making an impact, and it doesn't matter how small your impact is, whether you're caring for animals or caring for your elderly relative or caring for children at home. You are making a giant impact on those people that depend on you. So it doesn't matter if you're serving one person or if you're serving a million people, your impact and your leadership matters. And then to get things started requires so much energy, requires courage, requires like, I'm going to do it anyway. And that is what Aries is asking for all of us right now. How are we going to take lead? How are we going to motivate and energize to keep going? How are we going to stand up for what's right? And how are we going to trailblaze going our own way, in our own way, doing things just like how we want? And this is, to me, the true definition of living out loud. It doesn't mean to be the loudest person. I'm definitely not the loudest person. I have a rather soft voice, even with the microphone. But this means to be bold and to take action and to do it anyway, to contribute your leadership. And your leadership doesn't need to look like anybody else's leadership. Look to your rising sign, because that's going to really indeed show you your one of a kind leadership style. And this is really what Astrology for Changemakers, my book, is all about. And so when we think about, we're coming back, even though Aries is on Equinox, Aries is about bringing balance. And so when we think about the balance of Aries, we look to the opposite polarity of Libra. Aries and Libra live on that relationship axis. Aries is asking, who am I? And Libra is asking, who am I in relationship? And relationships teach us. Remember earlier when I was saying is that when we're being asked to lead, we're not leading by ourselves. We're not leading just ourselves. We're leading our people. So you have to remember, who are your people that you are here to lead? Of course, if you need to know who your people are and what really drives them, you look to the sign on your seventh house, because that's the archetypal energy that your people will embody. Now, at the time of on the day of the Aries ingress, we also have Mercury coming to a stop at Pisces of 8 degrees. When Mercury or any planet comes to a stop to change direction, it's called a station. And to move forward again is called station direct. So Mercury station direct, you might see it as Mercury SD, means that Mercury comes to a stop to change gears to now move forward. And this is at Pisces of 8 degrees. So remember that Mercury retrograde started a few weeks ago on February 25th, when Mercury stationed retrograde at Pisces of 22 degrees. And so Mercury, now that it's made its final destination of Pisces 8 degrees, when it moves forward, it has to cross back through that zone, that shadow zone. So it's going to be now crossing that same area of your chart for the third time. And so if you need to go back to my episode, Mercury retrograde in Pisces, called The Filament of My Imagination, How to Reimagine Your Soul Purpose. We looked at understanding what Mercury was asking us to reimagine. And so now that Mercury is going direct, this is asking us, okay, what have you learned? Right? Time to reflect, time to just take a little beat and reflect on what is being asked of you to reimagine. And now it's time to actually start living it. Again, live it out loud. You can't just like, oh yeah, I need to reimagine this and then just leave it there. You actually have to take action on it. If you don't take action on it, again, you miss that wave. And so from now until April 9th, Mercury is going to be crossing over that shadow zone. And then on April 9th, we'll have a completion of this Mercury retrograde, because now Mercury will have passed that shadow zone. So this is your invitation, not only to get things started, but to get things started on what you have reimagined, doing it your way, being a leader, living out loud. And so I want to come back to Star Powered Circle, because again, Star Powered Circle, we're opening it in alignment to the astrological new year. And we're having our opening ceremony 6 days after the Aries ingress on March 26th at 2 p.m. Pacific. Now, Circle again is our global community for living out loud. You should see just like people sharing their stories, their challenges, their celebrations, everything that they're going through, where we come together and really root for each other. Every month, we have new moon ceremonies where we plant our seeds of intention together. We actually, create the time to get clear on what we want. Like, this is the most powerful thing that you can do monthly, is to get clear on what you want. We will have full moon community building where we'll be witnessed and be held accountable for our dreams. We're going to be having astrology master classes, of course, for our eclipses, retrogrades, and other big cosmic events. And then, of course, our Astrobrand certified practitioners are going to be teaching you their own wisdom, their astrology and spiritual specialties. So please join in with Star Powered Circle. This is absolutely a community for leaders and seekers and change makers who are so done with doing things alone. This is not curriculum based. This is community and integration based. If you want curriculum, we have a path that, of course, offers the entire Astrobrand library plus additional star hours. And it's the perfect path if you are interested in getting a head start on your certification. So links are in the show notes, but head on over to starpowered.com/circle. Please join us in Circle. Okay, so remember I was telling you earlier that the first connection that the sun is going to have is when it bumps into Neptune at Aries of 1 degree. And this is going to happen on March 22nd. And when the sun and Neptune are forming this cazimi, it's asking us, how are we going to radiate our spiritual brilliance? Now, this sun Neptune cazimi, this conjunction, the Neptune being in the heart of the sun, this is the first time that it's happening in Aries in 164 years. And when we have two planets coming together in a conjunction, it's like a new moon, a new cycle. And so we have all of these new cycles within new cycles within new cycles. And we're starting a 164-year new cycle with Sun and Neptune. And so the sun, of course, is your zone of genius. It's your natural talent. It's your willpower. It's your superpowers that you really have to recognize and create opportunities. Otherwise, you are diminishing your brilliance. And Neptune is your interconnectedness, your connection to your highest self, to spirit, to the universe, to God, to your dreams, to everything. Neptune does more than blend the dots, it dissolves the lines between them, it transcends this. And so when the sun and Neptune are meeting, this is your genius meeting your soul. And so this is inviting us to trust our dreams, to trust the messages from spirit, and to create from in this co-creative place with spirit. Now, a few days later, on March 25th, the sun is going to meet up with Saturn, another cazimi, at Aries of 4 degrees. And Saturn and the sun are asking, how can you focus your brilliance? Now, first, this sun Saturn in Aries, this is the first time, because like now Saturn just moved into Aries. This is the first time in 30 years that the sun and Saturn will be meeting in Aries. And so sun, of course, we talked about your genius, your natural talents, and Saturn turns doubt into mastery. Saturn is all of the skills, all of the tools, all of the lessons hard learned from the challenges. Now, Saturn always is reminding you, you have come such a far way, that you are the expert of your life, that your lived experience is your expertise. And with Sun conjunct Saturn, this is a new cycle of you learning to live as the expert of your own life. Time to share your well-learned lessons. They're not liabilities. Your challenge are your hard-earned gold, and to know exactly who you are and your expertise. So there's a lot to do with that. So it's a big time of year. I hope that you're really feeling the momentum, the activation to just live out loud. And I hope that you're really feeling inspired to also join us in Star Powered Circle with a fresh start this astrological new year. Remember that this is our third and most impotent New Year celebration of 2026. This energy is asking you to stop reimagining. You've done that already with Mercury retrograde, and now start living it out loud. And so consider joining us with Star Powered Circle. It's really a beautiful community. You'll learn and love so much ritual, ceremony, change making, global sanctuary. It's only $55 a month. If you pay ahead for the whole year, you get 2 months free. And of course, we have scholarships, service-based scholarships available. So please reach out to Jeff and I. Head on over to our website. You'll have all the information there. And if you're interested about certification, we're starting up in for our 2026 cohort in the fall, but this is your chance to get a head start on all of that curriculum. So let this be your invitation. What is your fresh start for this astrological new year? How are you going to live the Eight of Wands? The Eight of Wands that is asking you to harness the universe's potent potential. This is your time, my friends. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Leave me a comment on YouTube. I'm happy to answer that. I want to hear how you're going to be living out loud in this fresh astrological new year. Happy Aries Ingress. I'll talk to you soon. So thank you again. If this episode, if this podcast has touched your heart, please share it with others. Please leave me a rating and review so we can reach the hearts of even more change makers like you.